Who could carry that kind of weight? It was my tune till I met you. I was breathing but not alive. And all my failures I tried to hide. It was my tune till I met you. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. Now your mercy saved my soul. Now your freedom is all that I know. The old man knew Jesus when I met you. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. Needed rescue, sin was heavy, the chains break at the weight of your glory. I needed shelter, I was an orphan, now you call me a citizen of heaven. When I was broken, you were my healing, now your love is the air that I'm breathing. I have a future, my eyes are open, my name. I went out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day.
You all sound wonderful. Go ahead and have a seat for us.
Are here. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers. We're so glad you took some time to be here with us, and we hope you're having a great day. A couple giveaways. Hey, make sure on the way out you stop by and get some hot sauce or some hot honey or some peanuts or Slim Jims, or take a couple of them if you would like. And also make sure and sign up to win a Solo Stove. We'll be giving that away later this afternoon. We'll do a Facebook video if I can figure out how to do a Facebook Live video. And then we'll also call the winner. So if you don't watch it, no big deal, because I realize you don't want to be on Facebook all day waiting for it. So make sure and do that as well. And so we got some giveaways for some dads. Now, let me go ahead and say this. I've already been told by several women that we're giving away a Solo Stove and some hot honey and stuff, and all y'all got was muffins. And so we're going to up the game next year for Mother's Day. We've already decided we're going to do a spa package and all that stuff, so it's going to happen. So just wait, but we'll do better for Mother's Day, I promise. So what I need to know who's been a dad the longest. All right, and so if you've been a dad for more than 30 years, do we have anybody that's been a dad for more than 30 years? 30 years. All right, 35 years? 40 years? 36? 37? All right, my brother-in-law won something last service. My father-in-law won something this service. I feel like that there's some nepotism going on here. So here you go. And so you can have, I don't know what these are. So here, you want to come get this? There's an apron for you. There you go. Oh, Gene. Oh, okay. All right, well, here you go. All right. We don't know what just happened there. So, he was giving, there you go, Gene. I was like, all right. So who has been a dad the least amount of time? So the newest dad. So anybody under a year? Under 2 years? Under 3 years? Anybody with dad? Oh, over here. All right, come on up. I got something for you. I got some hats, the legend and the legacy. Here you go. Yeah, give it up for him. I don't know if he'll fit in that or her yet, but there you go. So, all right. So, one more. Who has the most kids? Nathan's not here anymore, so y'all have a chance. All right. It could be foster, adopt. If they're your kids, they're your kids. So, anybody have more than 4? 5. You're the winner. Oh, 5. You both have 5? 6? We're tied at 5. All right, y'all both get a gift. All right, come on up here. Give it up for the dads. Here we go. You want one, Gene? You want an apron or a hat? Apron or a hat? All right, y'all got to pick. There you go. All right, everybody wins. All right. Happy Father's Day to you guys. Make sure and stop out there and get your stuff on the way out. Sign up for the Solo Stove. We'll give it away later this afternoon. Thanks for spending time with us. And now we've got a dad joke video for you.
We're so excited to celebrate Father's Day with you. And what better way to celebrate than with some dad jokes?
How do you fix a broken pumpkin? A pumpkin patch. Why did the football coach go to the bank to get his quarterback? What do you call a sleeping bull? A bulldozer.
Did you hear about the claustrophobic astronaut? He needed a bit more space.
What did the nose tell the finger? Stop picking on me.
Why can't a leopard hide? Because it's always spotted.
If April showers bring May flowers, then what do May flowers bring? Pilgrims.
What do you call a pencil with 2 erasers? Pointless.
What do you call a fake noodle? Impasta.
What did the banana say to the boy? Nothing, because he can't talk.
Why do dads bring an extra pair of socks to the golf course? In case they get a hole in one.
Very nice, Addie.
Yeah, they classically trained.
All right. Hey, welcome. We're so glad that you're here. Just a few quick announcements before we dive into the message today. Next Sunday, so we've got some kids that are going to high school beach camp here in a few weeks, and we're really excited for them. But what we want to do is we want to try and offset some of those costs for those families. So we are doing a cookout fundraiser next Sunday right after service. It's donation only, so if you want to pay $10 for a hot dog, that is fantastic. It is just a way for us to help these kids go to camp, get a closer relationship with each other and with Jesus, so we want to invite you to that next week. On July 3rd, it's a Sunday. We're going to have one service that day, so if you have plans to be here, that's 4th of July weekend, obviously, a lot of fireworks and all that, so make sure that you're here for our one service time. We'll announce that time next week, okay? Wait, that is next. No, it's not next week. It's 2 weeks. So we'll announce that service time next Sunday, and just be on the lookout for that. For everything else, download the Journey app. It's the best way to stay in touch with what's happening here, and if you're interested in giving or volunteering, it's a great place to start with that. So when I was a kid, our summer vacations were always road trips. My family we never flew anywhere. We couldn't afford it, and my parents were terrified. And so we always took road trips in our 1990 Dodge Caravan. It was the one with that wood panel on the side. And we always went to the same couple of places. And now as a father and have my own family, we find that most of the time we do road trips too. And we find that we go to the same few places every couple of years. And they are Panama City Beach, Myrtle Beach, Gulf Shores, and then every Thanksgiving we drive to Fort Wayne, Indiana, where my wife is from. And I hate that trip. Not just because it's my wife's family, but it is a 3.5-hour drive from here to Fort Wayne, Indiana, but it feels like it's about 7 because Indiana is really boring. There is just, there's just nothing there. You know, you've got Indianapolis, which is fine, but between here and Indianapolis, it's boring. Between Indianapolis and Fort Wayne, they're always doing construction. The traffic seems to crawl, and I just hate driving through that stretch because that's the point when the drive gets a little bit dangerous because I start to get a little complacent about the drive. I start to get a little bored with the trip, and it's a lot harder to pay attention when you're on a boring stretch of highway. I did a quick Google search just to see what the consensus was for the most boring states to drive through, and number one was Kansas. So followed closely, I've never been to Kansas, so I don't know, but followed closely by Oklahoma and Texas. Indiana didn't even make the top 10. So if that tells you anything about how boring those states must be. Now, if you're from Indiana, I'm really sorry about this first 5 minutes. You're just going to have to forgive me and roll with it. But you know, if you fly, these are the states that we refer to as the flyover states, right? Because there's nothing there. You just fly right over them. If you're driving, these are the sleep-through states. Unless you're driving, and then your job is to fight falling asleep. Because those boring states, they really can lead to a place of complacency about the road. And we all know that a complacent driver is a dangerous driver. But driving is not the only place in our lives that we face a dangerous type of complacency. We face complacency in all kinds of ways in our lives. Maybe it's relationship complacency, whether that's with a spouse or with family or friends. Maybe it's a career complacency or a financial complacency where you're just not really worried about how things are going or where you're spending your money. But everybody in this room has either in the past, is currently, or will face spiritual complacency at some point in time. And the problem with complacency is that it's not some big event that tells you that something's wrong. In fact, it's the exact opposite of that. There is no big warning sign for that. And in C.S. Lewis's book, The Screwtape Letters, there's an older demon named Screwtape, and he is writing letters to his nephew, who also is a demon, named Wormwood, about the best ways to distract a Christian person from following Jesus. And in one of his letters, he says this. It'll be on the screen. The road to hell is the gradual one, the gentle slope, soft underfoot, without sudden turnings, without milestones, and without signposts. Your affectionate uncle, Screwtape. See, Screwtape is describing complacency. It's easy. It's soft. It's gentle. There's no big twists and turns. There's no surprises. I really like the Merriam-Webster Dictionary's definition of complacency. And according to them, they say it's marked by self-satisfaction, especially when accompanied by an unawareness of actual dangers or deficiencies. When I read that, it sounded like Merriam and Webster had somebody in mind when they wrote that definition. And we all know somebody like this, and sometimes that person is us. If you're more of a visual learner, I'm going to show you a meme that if you're a person that's online, you've probably seen this before, but go ahead and put that up on screen for me. So this is that one. If you've not seen it, there's a dog, and I don't know why the dog's drinking coffee, because dogs like coffee. And he's in a room that is on fire, and he sits down at the table, and he picks up his cup of coffee, and he just says, "This is fine. You know, I'm okay with what's going on around me." And then you see it's pretty graphic there at the end. His skin starts melting off. I really didn't mean for that part to be up there. I realized after the fact that should have been like a viewer discretion advised or something. But we have all been in places like this in life where things are on fire around us and we're just fine with it. It'll be okay, I guess. It's cool. But what we need to recognize is that we're all going to fall into this complacency trap at some point in time. And maybe you're there right now. And what's really interesting and important to know is where complacency comes from. And the answer might be a little surprising because complacency always comes from past success. A great example of this is the Kodak company. And if you're under the age of probably 25, you may not know what Kodak is, but for the rest of us, we know exactly what Kodak is. Capture that Kodak moment. But the Kodak company was the first company to mass produce and sell cameras and film and sell them to people. And they started all the way back in 1888. And for the next century, they were the number one photography company in the world. And at one point in time, in the early 90s, they achieved a 90% market share. That means that out of all the pictures being taken in all the world, 90% of them were being taken on Kodak cameras, on Kodak film. But then in the late 90s, something happened, and digital cameras became more common and more affordable. And all of a sudden, Kodak's film wasn't necessary to take pictures anymore. But Kodak had been successful for so long that they said, you know, this is probably just a passing trend. People aren't going to want to try and print those out on computers. We think film is still going to be the thing. And it was their biggest moneymaker. So they chose not to innovate and not to compete, not to push forward and drive forward. And in 2012, Kodak filed bankruptcy. How do you go from a 90% market share to bankrupt in 20 years? Complacency. They had no self-awareness. They had no awareness of the dangers that they were in or what their deficiencies as a company might have been. They were complacent. And I don't know if you feel this way. There's nothing worse than someone who has no self-awareness. Because at its best, no self-awareness is annoying. But at its worst, it's dangerous. Your coworker who doesn't wear deodorant and they don't know they stink, that's annoyingly unaware, right? But the distracted driver, the person who's texting on the highway, well, they're dangerous. A great place to see just how dangerous complacency can be is in the book of Revelation. And in the first few chapters of the book of Revelation is a series of letters being written to churches in an area of the world called Asia Minor, what we would call modern-day Turkey. And one of those cities was a city called Sardis. And I want to read to you, these are the words of Jesus to this church. And it starts in chapter 3, verse 1 of Revelation, and it says this: "Write this letter to the angel of the church in Sardis. This is the message from the one who has the sevenfold Spirit of God and the 7 stars." So real quick, just to get this out of the way, to the angel of the church, the word for angel is the same word for messenger, which probably means pastor of the church. So to the pastor of the church, say this, and then the sevenfold Spirit of God and 7 stars and all that, that's political language. We can talk about that more some other time. But then he goes on in this: "I know all the things you do," this is Jesus speaking, "and that you have a reputation for being alive, but you are dead. Wake up, strengthen what little remains, for even what is left is almost dead. I find that your actions do not meet the requirements of my God. Go back to what you heard and believed at first. Hold to it firmly. Repent and turn to me again. If you don't wake up, I will come to you suddenly as unexpected as a thief." Now, a little bit of background information on Sardis. Sardis was an impressive city, and it was incredibly well defended because it was built into the side of a mountain, as you can see in the picture there. And it was the capital city of this empire, and the Greeks were so aware of the difficulty of attacking this city that they adapted a phrase. And the phrase was, to capture the Acropolis at Sardis is to accomplish the impossible. But Sardis was conquered multiple times in a relatively short period of time. The first time was in the 6th century BC by this guy named Cyrus the Persian. And Cyrus, he took a different strategy. In the cover of night, he sent men over the walls. And when his men landed, they realized that the whole city was asleep, completely unbothered by the fact that an army was waiting outside their walls. They'd been so successful in previous battles that they weren't worried. But the Persians, they just opened the gate, stormed right in, and took over it. 300 years later, Alexander the Great marched in, and they didn't even fight. They just left the gates open for him. And Alexander, he was so perplexed, he said, it's weird. They look really strong and like they're a strong army and ready to battle, but they're weak and complacent. And then just a few years later after that, another king, Antiochus III, did the same exact thing that Cyrus the Persian did. Sent men over the walls in the middle of the night, opened the gates from the inside. What Jesus is saying to this church is, hey, remember your history. Look at what the complacency, this sleepy complacency that marks your city. Look at what it's done to you. Proverbs chapter 1, verse 32 says this, "For simpletons turn away from me to death. Fools are destroyed by their own complacency." Being destroyed by one's own complacency is a theme we see in a lot of movies and TV shows and books, and there's a million examples out there. We'll nerd out for just a second. In Star Wars, right, the Jedi Council couldn't be bothered with the fact that this Sith threat was a thing. The Wizarding World of Harry Potter, they couldn't be bothered with Lord Voldemort's return, right? Spoiler alert. Don Corleone could not imagine that another family would rise up against him because they had past success. They turned complacent. And what we need to recognize is that complacency is a killer. Has your own complacency ever come back to bite you? Like you've dropped the ball on something, or you've gone to sleep on something that you shouldn't have gone to sleep on. Maybe it was a relationship. Maybe it was work. I mean, I know I have. I've been complacent about those things, and it hurts. And sometimes I feel like I live in a state of complacency in regards to my relationship with God. I had a youth leader when I was a kid, and he loved to ask this question, and the question was, how are you in Jesus? And I hated that question. For one, it's just a weird question to ask, because it sounds like me and Jesus are dating. But on top of that, I didn't want to answer honestly, because it's not that me and Jesus were bad, but we weren't great either. We were fine. And we all know that fine doesn't mean fine, right? Like when somebody asks you, well, how are you and your wife? Oh, we're fine. We just argued about the price of avocados for 2 hours, but we're fine. I don't want my relationship with God to be fine. I don't want me and Jesus to be okay. I want to be excited about it. I want to be enthusiastic about my faith. I want to be enthusiastic about my relationship with God. I don't want to feel the same way about Jesus that I do when I'm driving through Indiana. Sorry, Hoosiers. So how do we overcome complacency? How do we battle it? And there are lots of books and podcasts and resources out there available to you that will probably give you some great ideas and are way smarter than me and way more experienced than me. But I'd like to share with you the 3 strategies that I use. And these may work for you, and if you think they might, have at it. I invite you to try it. And if they sound like they're not for you, that's fine. But these are what work for me. And the first strategy that I like to use is taking ownership. And I don't just mean taking ownership of your complacency. That's part of it, but probably not even the most important part of it. I mean take complacency or take ownership of a place that you feel complacent in your life. If it's a relationship, take ownership of that relationship. If it's a career, finances, take ownership. And if it's your faith, if it's your relationship with God, take ownership of it. Own it. Because when something belongs to you, it's way more important to you. My oldest daughter just started swim team, and I got to be honest, at swim meets, I couldn't care less about the other kids' races. And it's not because I'm mean or heartless or that they're not good swimmers. It's because they're not my kids. They don't belong to me. I don't run the line of the pool cheering them on because they're not mine. I don't wait at the finish line for them because I can't claim them. But when my little girl jumps in the pool, there's nothing more important in the world to me than cheering her on because she's mine. So what do you need to take ownership of? What can you take ownership of? If you're here or watching at home, what in your life can you claim ownership of? Can you take ownership of a ministry? Of some important relationships, of leading a small group in your home, working with our children's ministry or our student ministry, pouring into people's lives, helping them get closer to Jesus? Because the healthiest and most vibrant churches in the world are the ones where people take ownership of whatever area they're involved with. And if you feel like your faith is in a place of complacency, there's nothing you feel excited about, taking ownership can change that like nothing else. We have a volunteer in our student ministry named Trista, who, in my mind, epitomizes taking ownership as a volunteer. She's not a paid staff member or anything like that, but you wouldn't know it by the way she pours into the kids that she's with. She takes her girls out to go and do fun events and hang out because they are her girls. Not because she has to, because she wants to, and she wants to see them grow. That's ownership. One of our vocalists you see on stage a lot, her name is Natalie, and she does a lot of great for us up here on stage, but what you don't know are all the things that she does behind the scenes. And if you're watching at home today and you can hear us, a big part of that is because Natalie has worked really hard to make that possible. She comes in on her day off and runs these systems, figures out how to make them work perfectly. That's ownership. And we have a group of ladies who we lovingly refer to here as the kitchen ladies. And if you had a cup of coffee here this morning, that's because they took ownership. Nobody ever asked them to make coffee for you. They just did it because they wanted you to feel welcome in their home. And we have tons of volunteers just like that I could go on and on and on about. They've taken ownership. So if you're not involved, if you haven't laid claim to a ministry yet, what are you waiting for? Because we need you. And this community needs you. And it could transform this place. The second strategy I found helpful in battling complacency is finding ways of reminding myself of why we do what we do. Remembering what the point of this whole church thing is, which is sharing the love of Jesus with the world. Victor Hugo, he's the author of Les Miserables. He once wrote this: "There is one thing stronger than all the armies in the world, and that is an idea whose time has come." The idea of unconditional love and grace and mercy from the creator of the universe is a pretty compelling idea. And seeing the natural outpouring of that love is a great reminder of why we do what we do. I love taking people on their first trips to developing countries. Countries that are really poor and yet the gospel is spreading like wildfire. Places like Guatemala or the Dominican Republic, Malawi, where the Wingfelds are going, which, by the way, they're going to be here next week to share some exciting updates, so come back and be ready to hear those and celebrate. But I love taking people to places like this because they get a brand new perspective on how important what we do is. We're so insulated as Americans from the worst kinds of poor in the world. Because in a lot of these places, even our poor look wealthy. But there's nothing that reminds you of the love of Jesus like seeing it in action in places where some people fail to see God present at all. For example, we have a partner village in Guatemala, and that village is called El Reparo. And there's a church and a feeding center, and they do basic medical checkups and offer school supplies. And we as a church partner with that community. And Jeremy and I are going down there in about a month to check in and see how things are going. And then later this fall, that community has grown so much that they have more kids that they need partnered with. And a great way to get involved and be reminded of what we do is to partner with one of these kids. It costs a little bit financially, but more importantly than that, it's investing in their futures and their well-being and their health, their physical, spiritual, and mental health. And if that's something that you'd be interested in, please come and find us, talk to us, and we will set you up with that. But to be in a relationship, and that's what it is, it's a relationship with one of these kids, can be life-changing. And that dovetails perfectly into the last strategy that I have found is useful for me in battling complacency, and that is being in relationship with other Christian people. Now, I want to be clear, and I absolutely 100% believe that we need to continue to be in relationship with non-Christian people. If you don't have any friends or people in your lives who are non-Christians, you're doing it wrong. You need to be in relationship with non-Christian people. But in what we're talking about right now, let's talk about being in relationship with other Christian people. It's really hard to be complacent when you have a group of people cheering you on, checking in on you, supporting you, depending on you. It's really hard to just be fine with fine when you're in that situation. That's why we push our small group ministries so hard here at Journey, because those small group ministries are designed and built to put you into relationship with other Christian people so that you can grow and battle complacency in your faith. So if you're not a part of a group, when we kick off this fall, we're going to invite you all to join a small group. And maybe you want to lead one. And if that's the case, we would love to have that conversation with you. But relationships with other Christian people are so incredibly important because, like Proverbs chapter 27 says, very famous verse, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. And a lot of us, myself included, we are being sharpened by the wrong people. We're allowing the wrong sources in our lives to sharpen us. And for a lot of us, we're not doing anything to sharpen anybody else. So, if you're feeling complacent today, if your faith feels fine, if you're not excited or enthusiastic about your relationship with Jesus, if you feel like you're driving through Indiana, my encouragement to you is take some ownership. Claim something, a ministry for yourself. Remember why we do what we do. And go find somebody to sharpen or be sharpened by. Let's pray. Father, we love you and we thank you. We thank you for being so gracious with us, for loving us in spite of our shortfalls. We ask that you would help us, if we are in a place of complacency, that we would overcome it. That we would lean on you and depend on you, and that we would remember what it is you've done for us. We just thank you so much for the opportunity to gather together, to worship as a church, to remember what happened on the cross, to celebrate who you are, Jesus. We ask that you hear our words, our prayers, our songs, that they would bring you joy and celebration. We love you. It's in Christ's name. Amen.
We come to a time of communion here at Journey. And if this is your first time visiting us, there's still time to go grab those little cups of juice and the wafers. They're all by the doors. We take communion in remembrance of what Jesus sacrificed on the cross. We take communion to remember the blood that was spilled for us. We take communion to remember the body that was broken. And we come together for communion really to proclaim the truth of the gospel. It's to remember that he chose us even when we felt like we weren't worthy. But we are worthy. So take whatever time you need with your Father, and then we're going to spend some time in worship.
You give light, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only.
You give life.
You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. And great are you, Lord. shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord.
Sing that out, church.
All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. All the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. Pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you only.
I carried a burden for too long on my own, and I wasn't created to bear it alone. I hear your invitation to let it all go. I see it now, I'm laying it down, and I know that I need you. I run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend, so I run to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh, oh, oh. You saw my condition, had a plan from the start. Your son for redemption, all the price for my heart. Oh, I don't have a context for that kind of love. I don't understand, I can't comprehend, and I know that I need you. I run to the Father, I fall into grace. I'm done with the hiding, no reason to wait. My heart needs a surgeon, my soul needs a friend, so I run to the Father again and again and again and again. Oh, 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 oh.
Just before we go into this last worship song, I wanted to tell you why I decided to have this song for Father's Day. Normally before each week I spend time praying and thinking about which songs fit best into our service. And I did a little research into this next song, and it's a song that you'll know. And Bethel Music actually wrote the song based upon a verse in 1 John, and that is, "There is no fear in love, but perfect love cast out fear." And I just thought, what a perfect way to describe our Father in heaven. Because He is a perfect love. He is a perfect Father. So as we sing the next lyrics, which is, they just repeat the words over, "I am a child of God," I just want you to lift up your words, lift up your voices to your Heavenly Father. Let's sing together.
You unravel me with a melody. You surround me with a song of deliverance from my enemies, till all my fears are gone. And I'm no longer a slave to fear. Oh, I am a child of God. And I'm no longer a slave to fear. Oh, I am a child of God. From my mother's womb, you have chosen me. Oh, love has called my name. I've been born again to your family. Your blood flows through my veins, and I'm no longer a slave to fear. Oh, I am a child of God, and I'm no longer a slave to fear. Oh, I am a child of God. Oh, And I'm no longer a slave to fear.
Sing this out.
Oh, I am a child. I'm no longer a slave to
It's been wonderful worshiping with you this morning. We hope you have a great Father's Day, and we'll see you back next Sunday.